Hello, best friends. Allie Duzette here, and happy birthday, America. So fun. Every year on your birthday, you get a brand new clock. Okay, I'm going to pull up a chart. Oh, let me set it up for one really quick second. Okay. Every year on your birthday, when the sun goes back to the very spot in the sky that it was when you took your first breath, a new chart is generated, and this is called your solar return chart. And this chart acts like a calendar for your year, which makes a lot of sense. There's 365 days in a year and 360 degrees in a circle. So if you know exactly how to use this as a calendar, it can act as a pretty accurate calendar. This has been true in my own life. The moon represents your feelings, for example. And 2 years ago, I had one of the worst days of my life, and I cried all day long. And then at the end of the day, I thought, man, I bet this is on my solar return chart. And I pulled it up. Sure enough, it was my moon day, the day when I was the most in touch with my feelings for the whole year. So these charts can be pretty accurate. I was just talking to a friend who had me look at her dad's chart earlier in the year. He's been dealing with some health problems. And so I pulled up his solar return and I said, the time to keep an eye on is going to be February the 10th. And sure enough, that is the day he ended up hospitalized. It was this whole thing. Charts can be really accurate if you know how to use them. Okay, so this is America's birthday this year. And you'll notice that this chart is actually for July 5th of 2022, which is really interesting. Because what else is happening on July 5th is that Cern starting the Large Hadron Collider. So we're going to have to see how these things interplay, because that just seems like such a weird coincidence to me, right? But it's just because the sun for America, when America took its first breath, okay, let's pull up America's regular chart. America's birthday, most, or at least many astrologers count this as America's birthday chart. July 4th, 1776 at 5:10 p.m. in Philadelphia. That was the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And a lot of people really wonder why that exact time and date is so important, especially because you can, of course, make an argument that, well, the Constitution wasn't ratified at that time, like we didn't have a president at that time, all of this kind of thing, right? But just like, to me, it's just like humans, you count an astrological chart from the moment of somebody's first breath, right? And, when they get married or when they get baptized or like they have these big life events, there's charts that are generated for those moments as well. But the moment of your first breath, that's when the seed is planted, and that is the chart that you use for your entire life. And like, you take your first breath and like, no, you haven't had all your big accomplishments yet. Maybe you haven't been formally recognized by the school system. You didn't register for kindergarten yet, but you existed. That first breath of life is what planted the seed for your life, astrologically speaking. And that's the chart that we use for a human. And so that's also the chart that we use for a nation. And for America, this has been the chart that many astrologers use when they're looking at America's birthday. Okay, and this is the chart that we are using for the Pluto return, right? I've been doing a lot of work with the Pluto return because we just had our first Pluto return in February, and our second Pluto return is coming up in just 1 week from now. It is coming up on July 11th. No, that must not be true. I would remember 7/11. It must be July 14th. I will have to go and double check apparently. But I guess there's an easy way to do that, because all we have to do is pull up our planet return for Pluto, and we're going to return to natal and go to the next. And it is July 11th. I was right, 7/11. Okay, there we go. Sorry, select. There we go. This is the Pluto return chart that we're heading into. Pluto is on a 244-year cycle. So most nations never see their first Pluto return. Ours is this year, but because Pluto went retrograde, that's that RX right there. When you see the red RX, it means that the planet is retrograde. And when that happens, it means that From the perspective of the Earth, that planet is going backwards for just a minute, and then it's going to go forwards again. And remember, we're dealing with space and orbits, and none of these planets are actually turning around and going backwards. It's all just a perspective thing based on how things are moving around from Earth's perspective. From Earth's perspective, how we perceive it to be moving around. So what has happened is Pluto went that way and it whacked us at 27 degrees and 33 minutes of Capricorn on February the 20th, the same day that Putin invaded Russia, or shall we say, let's put it a different way. Let's say the Russia-Ukraine conflict began. I know, there's a lot of unclear information around what's going on over there, but it all really started on February the 20th. And so Pluto whacked us that way, and now it's going to whack us the other way on July 11th. And so this is just a week away. What will happen next? And I'm going to make a whole separate video just about this chart because it's got a lot going on. You see this blue triangle that's like pretty intense, and you see this triangle right here that, oh, it's not a true triangle. Well, that's why I need to go and fully analyze it. But there's a lot going on. So we are just 1 week out from some really interesting stuff also involving America and calculations based on America's birthday chart. But today I wanted to take a look at the solar return chart, which is going to be calculated from the time that the sun returns to 13 degrees and 19 minutes of Cancer. And remember that this guy is Cancer. It looks like a 6-9, but it's actually crab claws. Okay. Ding. It's the crab, Cancer the crab. That's what that is. It's not really a 6-9. Okay. So let's go back to the solar return for the United States. And I have it set to run from Philadelphia, but we're going to change it to Washington, D.C. Because even though our nation was kind of born in Philadelphia, now it is run out of Washington, D.C. And the place that you are when your birthday is there, whenever you have your birthday, the place that you are really matters to the accuracy of the chart as a calendar. So, okay, so here we are. Oh no, what have I done? I updated the regular chart. This is a problem. America's birthday chart is from Philadelphia. Great. And now we need to run a subsidiary chart. We're going to go back to the solar return from Washington, D.C. the next. Here we go. July 5th at 4:24 a.m. from Washington, D.C. The sun will go right back to where it was when the nation was born. And this is a really interesting degree for a lot of reasons. First off, 13 degrees of Cancer is considered a critical degree astrologically. Critical degrees are based on Arabic math, basically what's called isotraps, which kind of this shape, if you follow my cursor right here, it's an isosceles trapezoid shape, and they use that shape to do all these calculations. Anyway, it's not worth explaining, but basically every 12 degrees and 51 minutes, that marks the area of a critical degree. And that kind of part of the chart really is pointed. It's got a lot of more energy than other parts of the chart. So 13 degrees of Cancer has a lot more energy to it than 21 degrees of Cancer. 21 degrees is not a critical degree. 13 degrees is a critical degree, okay? And what's extra special about this is that Sirius, the dog star, is actually at 14 degrees of Cancer. It's a fixed star. So all of our planets, they transit the zodiac, and we view them against the backdrop of these constellations, right? But Sirius does not move, and Sirius, the dog star, stays in its spot, which is at 14 degrees of Cancer. And this is just so interesting. It's the brightest star in the sky. And so I just think it's so fascinating that the Declaration of Independence was signed on the date, first off, of a critical degree, and then second off, of the critical degree that aligns the sun itself with the brightest star that we can see from the Earth. Like, how fascinating, and what, I mean, is that not a prophecy that has been totally fulfilled, where America kind of steals the stage, right? You could say, like, all eyes on the whole world look to America for all sorts of reasons. Um, and that is just punctuated by this alignment that has been in place since America's very first breath. It just so happened that they signed their John Hancocks right as the sun was moving into the orb of Sirius. So how fascinating. Okay, so another interesting thing before I even start interpreting this chart, I just want to mention that Cern starts tomorrow, the Large Hadron Collider. They're turning it on tomorrow. And they're actually going to turn it on for the day. They're going to start a live stream about it at 4 p.m. in Meyrin, Switzerland. I probably said that wrong. I have no idea. And this is the chart for the 5th of July at 4 p.m. Okay, in Switzerland. So this is the same day, but from a different place. So a lot of people wonder, like, if I'm born at a different, like, I'm born at the same hospital and the kid next to me is born like 2 minutes later, you can have a different chart. It's not necessarily so different, you know, like there's going to be definitely similar themes in different areas, but I mean, this is going to be at 4 p.m. and then just take a look at that as I pull up America's solar return. This is the chart for the AM, and you can see that in 12 hours, you have a really different looking chart. Okay, so this, and I want you to pay attention now. I'm going to go back and forth. Look at this little bottom area, this shape that's created down here. Okay, look at this shape. Notice these blue triangle actions right here. Notice this red square going right here. Okay, and now we're going to switch it over to America's birthday. And notice that on this chart, you know, it's a little bit different. There's no longer that red square, right? There's no square. There's some red lines, but the square is gone. Okay, so that it's just really interesting how all of the aspects have changed in just 12 hours. But the stuff that's going to apply to America is kind of also going to apply to the Cern situation that we've all been keeping our eyes on, and just in different ways. Just like two people who are born on the same day can have really different lives, of course, because how they interact with the world is just different person to person. Let's put it this way. There's no such thing as a good chart or a bad chart. It all comes down to the energy that you bring to the chart. So two people with a really similar chart are going to live totally different lives. And it just depends on the attitude that they bring, the choices that they choose to make. None of this supplants in individual agency or anything like that. It's kind of more like a mirror. You know, the mirror doesn't make you put your lipstick on, but if you put on your lipstick, you can see it in the mirror, right? Like the mirror doesn't force anything. It just shows you what's happening and you choose what's happening. You choose it and the mirror just reflects it back. And so that's to me kind of how I view the stars. I don't really feel like they control anything, but just that they're like a really good mirror for what is going on. So this is America's solar return for the year. And when you read the chart of a nation, it's called mundane astrology. Okay, so there's two different fields of astrology. You have personal astrology, and then you have mundane astrology. And if you know Latin or like Spanish or Latinate language, you know mundo means the world. That's why it's mundane. Like in English, we think mundane, maybe boring, but it really refers to that Latinate word of the world. Mundane astrology is the astrology of the world and countries versus personal astrology, which is like, what's your sign? You know, I'm a Virgo, that kind of thing. So we're looking at this as a country's chart, and reading a country's chart is very different than reading a personal chart. And I couldn't find a ton of information about reading the solar return of a nation. And so earlier today, I spent a lot of time this morning looking up previous years. So like this is the solar return from 2019 to 2020. But my software, I use AstroGold, it couldn't give me the exact moment that the sun entered 13 degrees and 19 minutes in the chart because let's see, you can see 15 minutes later, it's still at 13 degrees and 19 minutes. So it's got to have like a further delineation that it wouldn't tell me when I looked, and I couldn't find it myself, but I'm going to skip it for 15 minutes ahead. And you can see that right here, when you skip 15 minutes around, it's going to change that ascendant in particular. And it can change, this is called the white moon or Selene. It's going to flip around where she is and check out the moon. We're going to flip forward and suddenly the moon's in a different house, right? So the houses are not going to be super accurate here, although I do believe that no matter what, that year, 2019 to 2020, we obviously had a Virgo rising. Virgo is obsessed with health. And so, of course, America's birthday starting on July 4th of 2019, what do we have going on? Like right about here for the year, I believe we had we had March, like shutdown area was going to be right around here, which here is the planet of death and rebirth. Here's us having to deal with our karmic past around business and money, the economy and government. And this is going to deal with pandemics. Saturn can represent epidemics. And so we can see that on the yearly calendar for 2020, health obsession, possible death and rebirth around physical illness in the physical body. So that is pretty interesting. That was 2019 to 2020 because we measure from July 4th to July 4th. That is how America's clock is set. We measure July 4th to July 4th or thereabouts. Look, again, on this year, the solar return was really on the 5th because that's just when the sun happened to return to 13 degrees and 19 minutes of Cancer. That's what we're measuring from, not the date, but the exact time that the sun went back to where it started, that exact spot in the sky. So you're never going to have a solar return that's like 2 or 3 days away. You might get one that's one date off, and it's going to be, this is still 10:59 a.m. You're not going to find a July 5th, solar return for America that's like 11:59 p.m. That would be pretty crazy because of how the sun is and how our calendars are. Okay. So let's see. This is an interesting thing from that year, but we can come back to that on a different time. Okay. Let's go back to 2020. Let's see. I had it all pulled up. Here it is. America's 2020 to 2021 solar return. Once again, look at that. Pluto right next to Saturn, death and rebirth, focus on a pandemic. This Jupiter and Palace is going to massively expand, especially kind of like conspiratorial thinking and around this whole kind of situation. And sure enough, what did we behold, right? Okay, so anyway, so that was 2020. And I want to look at all of these a lot more because I didn't get a chance to like really sit down and see how they all fit in with the official timelines. But this is the chart for today. And once again, today, for July 5th of 2022, this year's solar return, which starts tomorrow, and it starts on the same day as they're firing up the Large Hadron Collider at Cern in Switzerland. So this is just really interesting. So I wanted to just get a flavor for these charts and for myself, and now I'm just sharing it with you too. So America's birthday, the first thing that really stands out to me is that we have double, let me just double check here. We almost have a double kite, but not quite. So the kite is this shape right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So you see this blue triangle in the middle. And blue triangles mean flow. It means that things are going to flow really easily around all the edges of the triangle. So let's take a look at what's here. This is Sirius. She's the goddess of the harvest. Okay. And this is Black Moon Lilith, which is the kind of like the goddess of boundaries, dark feminine. I always envision her as like the medicine woman with a staff and a giant like eagle thing on her shoulder. And she's kind of got that Gandalf energy that's like, thou shalt not pass, like you shall not pass, you know? So that's a really interesting thing when we're looking at a looming food crisis. And Ceres is right here next to the energy of boundaries in the home. This is looking like a focus on harvests and the need for boundaries, especially when it comes to money, land, items and stuff, and food. So we can interpret that how we will. We'll just see how that plays out. Over here, it flows into the South Node in Scorpio, which is going to deal with the skeletons in our closet and all the stuff that the people who came before us need to answer for through us. Okay, this can look like ancestral issues that are coming forward to be resolved through us. Okay, if you've had like family junk going on in your family line and now you're the chain breaker, if you've heard that, this is a chain breaker energy or a chained energy, you know, depending on how you look at it. This is the energy of our national backstory as the skeleton in the closet coming into play. And how is it going to come into play? Oh, well, with a national focus on harvests and boundaries. How are we going to put a boundary on our food situation? What boundaries are we going to have to set around harvests? This also deals with motherhood. And interestingly, I just read that we've fallen below replacement rate with in terms of the birth rate, right? So that is a whole other discussion to have, but that also will fall into this boundaries on motherhood. A lot of people have put a lot of boundaries in, and now it to the point where our society will literally die out and not be replaced. Like there are not enough humans being born to take care of us in our old age, to take care of you in your old age. Like people didn't have enough kids for that. And so that's all just kind of coming out right now. I'd say in the past month, I've probably read 3 or 4 different things about how on a nationwide level and then on like a global scale, we're falling below replacement rate. Boundaries on motherhood, boundaries on the harvest. Ceres is, remember the story of Ceres, her daughter Persephone, she loved her daughter. Pluto kidnapped her, Hades, the god of the underworld, and took her down into the depths of hell. And that's where she was stuck. And her mother, Ceres, bargained for her to come back out and join her. And so that's how we get the deal that we have summer and fall and winter, that these are the seasons, how the Greeks and Romans explained the seasons. When Persephone is with her mother, it's fun in the sun, it's summertime and harvest. And then when Persephone has to go back down to the underworld, it's fall and winter. And so it's a seasonal energy. It's a seasonal energy, and this is an interesting energy. That's why it deals with motherhood. That's why it deals with suffering in motherhood, losing children, and gaining children, having your child return to you. Both seasons there for sure. And the goddess of the harvest, that's going to be when there's plentiful harvest and not plentiful harvest. But either way, we can say for sure this is going to deal with boundaries on harvest energy and motherhood energy. Up here, we have Pluto, which is an energy of delusion, illusion, and delusion. It's an energy where you're not always sure what's going on because it's the energy of what you don't know. Okay. And this is Juno, which is the asteroid goddess of money and marriage. It likes Juno, the goddess, the wife of Zeus, right? Where Zeus was super unfaithful to his wife in Greek mythology, and she just took it, right? She just like took it and she stayed loyal. This is where we get the word money from, because the other name for her was Montera, and that is the word that we got the word money from. So this is delusion around money, illusion around money. Neptune, so politically speaking, like Uranus would be considered like right wing, and Neptune is considered a left wing, or like basically like socialist. And so this can be like a socialist money sort of conjunction right here. I mean, we'll just have to keep an eye on it. It can be illusion and delusion around money. could be illusion and delusion about solvency of the government's money. I mean, here's the thing, it can all be interpreted a bunch of different ways. And so it kind of just reminds me of the grand planetary alignment that showed up on the morning of the Roe v. Wade overturn, because I saw that and I gave this interpretation. We were going to be dealing with the unintended consequences of a humanitarian act gone wrong. It was going to cause massive conflict. It was going to involve feminine sexuality, and it was going to lead to the psyche split with us versus them thinking. And then an hour later, they released the Roe v. Wade overturn. And so, I couldn't have predicted that this was the chart of the day that Roe v. Wade would be overturned. But we could see in retrospect that really fit the bill in a way that a lot of other situations would not fit the bill, right? So just kind of an interesting thing. Okay, so back to the chart. So all of this is flowing into each other. Delusions about money, illusions about money. This can also be divine messages about money. Dealing with boundaries around food and motherhood and seasons, all seasonal thinking over there. And then again, got to deal with whatever past sins are going on in the national history. It's all flowing into each other here. And it's pointing down here at the moon at 22 degrees of Virgo. And Virgo, when the moon is in Virgo, in a personal chart, Virgo moons tend to be very, very, very perfectionist. They are obsessed with perfection, very logical. They can be very self-deprecating because they know that they are not perfect. And they want to expect perfection from everybody, but especially themselves. So it can be pretty tough to be a Virgo moon as a person. So what does it mean to have the moon in Virgo for an entire nation? So the moon is going to represent kind of like the feelings of the citizenry, okay? And in Virgo, I guess let's just talk it out. The citizenry's feelings and attention being in Virgo in the 4th house, to me, that's saying that there's going to be a national attention on wanting to heal the land. As I'm saying that, I'm thinking climate change. Okay, I'm thinking a national attention on probably farming practices, sustainable farming practices, and unsustainable, just all farming, all land, all climate stuff. There's going to be some attention on that. And there will be a lot of desire to get it perfect, and probably a lot of judgment. The thing about Virgo is that Virgo is considered the most judgy sign of the chart. And I can say that I am a Virgo sun. I have a lot of stuff going on in Virgo. It's very logical and very analytical, and it loves perfection and it wants things to be perfect. And the default setting of Virgo is to be sure that it is right, because a Virgo will tell you they did the research. They looked really hard. They read a ton of stuff. They immersed themselves in information and used that to make this really reasoned, logical opinion. So of course they are right. And all the Virgos know that that's true. That's totally how that they think. I know it because I did the research, right? But this Virgo moon here, to me, it just kind of has that flavor of almost a little bit of a contentious flavor, because when a bunch of people all have their eye on the same thing and they're demanding perfection and they have different perspectives, that's a mess, right? That is messy. And so we'll see, but I'm going to guess that our national focus is going to have to do a lot with land and housing, healing the land, healing your homes. And people will think, well, it would all be fixed if X, and you're going to get the two sides of the coin. You're going to get the people that say all of our problems would be solved if they would just loosen regulations and let people, have as many chickens as they want on their property, or if they would release regulations and allow for X kind of factory situation or whatever. And then you're going to get the other people that are saying all of our problems would be solved if only they would if they would add in more regulations and if they would ban conventional farming and stuff like that. So and it's just going to be people's different perspectives, people's different perspectives and opinions based on the research that they did and based on the situations that they saw growing up, that they've seen in the past, they've seen with other people. All of us get the opinions that we have, like we reason them out in our minds with facts and logic, but they are also based on our feelings, and they're also based on just our past experiences, and what we think is a trustworthy source comes from that. And it's all just so varied. Everybody's going to have a different opinion, but to me, it looks like there's going to be a big perfectionist streak that we're going to see pretty clearly this coming year. Okay, it's coming into my mind. This thing, what I'm seeing is the word like cancel culture, that this can be an energy that will like seriously ramp up the cancel culture, because on a national level, there's going to be this huge feeling that we need to be perfect, demand perfection of others. And this little blue line right here is going to connect that with this south node. We have to be perfect in paying for the sins of our past. And that just really reminds me of all that cancel culture type of stuff that we see. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out. Now look at this. This is very cool. Here is this little red line and this little red line and this little blue line. And this is called a yod, or the finger of God. And that means there's a special mission in this chart for us as a nation. So let's see what it has to say. This is the moon in Virgo. So our special mission is going to deal with our national attention on perfection, on logic, on land, on homes and housing, the housing market, all of that. Over here, it's only this black moon Lilith. Let's go take a look at her. This is called an aspectarian, and that is that. Okay. So that black moon Lilith of boundaries and the dark feminine, and getting your needs met however you need to get them met. And then, I'm hearing in my mind, like getting your needs met however they need to be met, especially when other people are not there to support you. Black moon Lilith is like that feminine energy that is not necessarily supported by other people's. It's the energy that she has to support herself, standing up for herself because nobody else will. And so that's really interesting. And so it's all pointing at Pluto. I'm sorry, that's not Pluto. It's Saturn. It's pointing at Saturn, which is the planet of karma. That's what they say, the Lord of karma. And when Saturn is in play, we're all going to deal with our consequences. And here we are, Saturn is still at 24 degrees in Aquarius retrograde. So this is still where it was just about for the Roe v. Wade overrule, and where it was when it popped up over the horizon in the Grand Planetary Parade, the Grand Planetary Alignment that I did those other videos about. So this is just really interesting. It just tells me that there's kind of a price to pay, and we're going to see it in our feelings, and we're going to see it in how on a national level, there's going to be boundaries that have to be set that are not going to be comfortable to make. And it's pointing up here to, there is some kind of price that has to be paid for things that have happened in the past, possibly things that were meant to serve other people, because Aquarius is very humanitarian. It really wants to serve the whole world. It wants to save the world. And so in retrograde, where has that gone wrong? And I used some examples in previous videos, but I mean, with pretty much any humanitarian issue, you can make the case for both sides of why it is humanitarian or why it isn't. It's that way again for like the abortion argument, right? With Roe v. Wade, there's people that say the most humanitarian thing to do is make abortion as accessible as possible for everybody. And then there's people that are saying, the most humanitarian thing to do is to make it as unaccessible as possible to everybody. That's true with immigration. It's true with social welfare. It's true with, public education versus private education. Like, basically in any realm that you can think of, there's an argument for both sides, and they're both going to argue these humanitarian points. And so I think what we're going to see is whatever policies that show up, we're going to have to face the dark side of them. And what we all view as the dark side is going to be different person to person. But that won't matter, because we will all see with our own eyes how that plays out. And I can't say exactly how it will play out, but just that we have this destiny of everybody having to logically, it'll be an emotional thing and a logical thing to kind of reason and feel through, where have our humanitarian impulses gone wrong as a nation? Where do we need to set better boundaries? And this does not look like a super fun energy to me. When we are in the throes of it, we need to remember on a personal level, the answer to this question is in the bisection of this triangle, which is going to throw us into 24 degrees of Leo, right about here, which is in the third house. And so that just tells me that in that moment, you might want to take a note as you watch the next year from July 4th to July 4th. In America, when people have to pay, as a society, when we have to pay for humanitarian impulses that may have gone wrong, and when there's boundaries to be set that are not comfortable and our emotions are in turmoil about it, the answer is to connect with your neighbors. That's what the message is of this exact location of the chart. Connect with your neighbors. Get to know the people around you. Know your local area. Know the people that you see at the grocery store. Know these people and be charming with them. Be kind with them. That's Leo. Leo is charming and charismatic. Whatever you can do personally to be on really good terms with your neighbors, that is going to be really helpful to you personally when or if there is a situation where as a nation we have to pay the piper based on a humanitarian act gone wrong that requires some new boundaries and really is not very fun. Go and connect with your neighbors. We have to have strong communities. That is the message of this chart. That is the divine call for everybody in America right now. That yacht is saying, go make some friends. Go find people that are close to you physically and geographically that you can trust and that you can enjoy, that you can have fun with. Okay, Leo is so fun. But Leo is a leadership energy, and in its health, it's going to get the job done. Like Leo in health is Simba when he finally goes and fights Scar and takes back the Pride Lands. Okay, so Leo is willing to do what it takes to get the job done. And it will do that because of its community in this exact instance. This is a community motivated Leo energy. Okay, so that is something that we're going to want to keep an eye on. Ooh, this is rough. Our treasure this year as a nation is going to be smack dabs. Oh God, between this is our deepest soul wound and there's Jupiter that's just going to magnify it all. To me, that says our greatest soul wound is going to be around money, 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 and that it will cause some conflicts with large groups of people. Okay. Or rather, not that it will, but that it could. Let's just say that it could. And how else could it look? It could look like real mastery over money. Chiron is both the greatest soul wound and the master. So it can look like suddenly we get our monetary situation under control, but that just seems unlikely to me. It seems unlikely. So I think it will probably be that things get even more out of control because this is going to be out of control. And then this makes it even more so, you know? And this is a conflict energy. And I think we can agree that the trajectory for our nation has been towards more conflict instead of away from more conflict. So this looks like some conflict energy to me. Let's see what else is critical to mention. Uranus so close to the North Node. I'm guessing we're just going to see some surprise events that, I don't know, nobody will see them coming, and we'll just have to check back in and find out what they are as they happen. And to have Mars at 0 degree of Taurus and Mercury at 00 degrees of Cancer is just also quite interesting. And they are sextile. That's that little blue line. So this is fiery, conflict driven Mars in stable, money driven Taurus. So that's interesting. Possible conflicts surrounding money or involving money, or it could just be a calming energy that kind of tamps down any conflict energies, because Taurus doesn't want to fight. Taurus wants to like eat ice cream on the couch, you know. So we'll just have to see how that one plays out. And Mercury in Cancer, Mercury is a really quick thinker, and Cancer is a homebody. So these are some really interesting energies that we're just going to have to see. How does that play out? You know, we'll just have to keep an eye on it. Well, I was going to look at Cern too really quick. So super quick. Let's take a little look. I wanted to mention they're starting the live stream at 4. But just look at the middle. I'm just going, look at this little section right here, starting at 4, and see how the shapes change, because look, do you see how like suddenly we have these triangles here, and we have kind of almost a Star of Solomon action happening? Actually, that is the Star of Solomon, I believe. So this would be a really interesting energy if they actually started the Large Hadron Collider at 5:45 p.m. Switzerland time. And it wouldn't surprise me if they did a little build up on their live stream first and then ran it. But that's just a really interesting shape that would have, you know, some interesting stuff to analyze, except that I promised my family that I'd be out of here at 3:00 because it's the 4th of July and we have to go party, but I couldn't help myself because I really wanted to analyze these charts. So you can see that just 15 minutes at a time, it's making some big shifts in the shapes in the middle of the chart. So, but all of these kinds of energies are going to be still applying to Cern in just a different way. Now they don't have that divine calling in that way, except in this chart, nope, it still does. It still does have that. The karma on this end, the boundaries on this end, the focus on perfection and emotions on that end, and that call to hang out in Leo, that charming Leo. But if this is the right time to count from, then their focus has to be on being charming in work, right? At the office, which is, you know, an interesting, different flavor. Let's take a look. Unexpected events. Now the part of fortune is in a whole different place, but that Chiron is still pretty close to Jupiter, and we're just going to double check on that. Yep, it's conjunct. So possible big expansion of either mastery of like the science, or possible deep wounding of, I don't know, say like the fabric of our space-time continuum. I don't know. So, and here is, of course, the planet of delusion next to the asteroid of money. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out. Okay, so that was a little bit of an analysis of what's going on with America this year, based on the solar return chart. And we're just going to have to see how it plays out. Again, you can't really predict exact events or something like that with this kind of thing, or at least I can't for sure, but there's a lot of interesting clues in there that it's kind of been fun to keep an eye on them and then see how they play out over time. So that was it for today. We're just gonna keep an eye on how things play out. And I invite you to go and make friends with your neighbors today. Go and meet somebody new. Go meet the person that lives next door or across the street, and start building up those communities now. These are the people that you will need to be able to count on, pretty much for any emergency that you might have in any way. Like, we don't need to have a national problem to benefit from you being friends with your neighbors, right? Like, if you have, I don't know, you get a cold and you need somebody to bring you some NyQuil or something, like, it's really great if you know that your neighbor could do that for you and that they would like to because you are friends, right? It's always good to have great neighbors that you are friends with. And the only way to make that happen is to take the initiative yourself and go introduce yourself and go and start making this a priority. And before I go, I just want to mention that We moved into a new neighborhood years ago, and the people across the street brought us cookies. And then they invited us to eat dinner with them. And then they just kept coming and they just kept coming. And they moved an hour away and they invite us to their house. And from the moment we moved in, they were so kind and welcoming. And now they are some of our dearest friends. And even though they're not living close to us, we still love them. And I have not been as great of a neighbor as they are. They are fabulous neighbors, and I'm less fabulous of a neighbor because I have 5 kids and I do this all day and just like work and take care of my kids. But that is kind of a big problem. And I know I need to do a better job of reaching out to my neighbors. I love the neighbors that I know, and I wish I knew them better. And I wish I knew more of my neighbors better. But it is possible. And it is possible even if you moved into your house 5 years ago and you never reached out to anybody, you can start now. You can start today. You can do it. You can. I believe in you because you are a brave person and you are a wise person. Okay. And you are a loving person, and you can go and learn somebody's name. You can make them cookies. You can cheat. It's not cheating. You go to the store and you just buy a plate of cookies and bring it to them. You can do that, or it doesn't have to be cookies. You can bring flowers. You can just bring your own delightful self and your sense of genuine curiosity to get to know them better and to just have a beautiful conversation. So I invite you to think of ways that you can connect with the people around you today, tomorrow, next week. Can you have a neighbor over for dinner on Sunday? These are the connections that you will never regret. You will never regret. I mean, I hope that the worst thing that ever happens to all of us is that we all win the lottery and live happily ever after. But even in that case, you will still be glad if you are best friends with the people that are close to you. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Go and make some friends with some neighbors that are geographically close to you. And that's it for today. Happy birthday to America. Happy day to you. Go watch some fireworks and eat some hamburgers, okay? See you guys later. Bye.